Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Aces53. I'm Brian Galke. As normally, we have Ed Parco with us. However, Ed is busy today, so usually it's me, the one who's gone, but today you get to talk to just me. So what does Aces53 stand for? This is a course that Ed took when he was in college, and the professor talked about sales is about attitude, commitment, enthusiasm, and smile. One of the ones I do not do nearly enough when I'm talking or up on stage. But anyway, and 53, there's 52 cards in the deck. The best thing you can have is 4 aces, and then what else? A joker or a wild card. So normally on days like today, a Thursday, what we end up doing is we have somebody else on as a guest speaker to talk about what's a skill they learned that they've used in the real world and what's something that sets them apart. How did they run across it? What can they teach us? And today I'm going to be talking about NLP. So why am I going to be talking about NLP? I just got certified again. I took a course about 10 years ago on it. And for people who don't know what it is, it's not natural language processing in computers. That is, yes, another type of NLP, but this is neuro-linguistic programming. So it's basically two scientists, a therapist and a scientist, looked at how do we talk to each other? How do we talk to ourselves? How do we model the world? What do we take a look at? And so I just grabbed a few of the concepts that are really popular in NLP. And when I'm going to be reading them to you today, yes, because I'm still refreshing it, so I'll be reading them off my cheat sheet here, is what do we say? And then how often do you hear it out in the world? And it's kind of funny because I know Steve talks about some things, Ed talks about them, but I forget where they come from. But anyway, I got a little distracted there. There were two therapists who came together. They were looking at how do they help their patients in the most efficient manner possible. And so one was the head, hence neuro, and the other one was a linguist who took a look at what do people say? How does our language impact what we say, do, hear from other people? So they kind of came together, they joined forces, and they created what is known as NLP. So it was Milton Erickson and then John Bandler. Gosh, I'm doing great on this part, right? But anyway, it's not about who it came from, but how can it help us? So the certification is not for the lighthearted. 5 days back to back, 8 hours a day, and you learn a lot. And then you go through the exercises at the same time. But in relearning this, I realized you still hear a lot of successful people, be it salespeople, speakers, you name it, use a lot of this as a fact. And so we'll just go over what the main presuppositions of NLP are. You can tell I'm just rocking it today. And then that's the basics of NLP. Then we'll get into a few more specifics. So with that being said, why don't I get started? Because I feel like if I read it, I might actually be able to talk today. So first, number one is respect for other people's model of the world. And what that means is I may see the exact same event differently than you see that event, and it's fine. And the reason why we're starting off with that one, people have lost that ability to put themselves in someone else's shoe. Right now, it's just like, well, if you're not with me, you're against me. At least that's how it looks like on social media. Friends, family members, coworkers, if you have a different opinion of something, suddenly you're an evil person. Instead of just going, okay, cool, it's not what I believe. Can you tell me about it? Let's have a discussion. That seems to be a lost art. But that's the first presupposition of NLP. Second one, behavior and change are to be evaluated in terms of context and ecology, which means a single action doesn't define a person. It's what's going on right now and where is it going on. You know, if somebody's had a bad day and it was your first time meeting them, you don't have to assume they're an a-hole right away. It may have been just the situation. Maybe they had a bad morning. Maybe they just got, bad news, doctor, friends, family. You don't know what it is. So take a look at the environment that you're in and take a look at what may happen. So there's a very popular phrase in body language and other skills, which is establish a baseline. Is this how the person is all the time? Or is this how the person is this time in this particular moment? Number three, resistance in a client is a sign of a lack of rapport. Well, gosh, doesn't that kind of come over to sales as well? And that is people won't buy your crap if they don't believe you. That's why a lot of what we talk about is how do you build rapport with other people? I obviously teach how to understand people based on their facial features. Ed educates people on the home buying process. He's got a book out, getedsbook.com. It's creating value. So when you're talking, rapport is value. What do you do to make people know, like, and trust you? And I say make. You should just be the person you are. And if they like you, they like you. If they don't, they don't. If you try and change who you are and people can figure out that you're incongruent with what you say, then all of a sudden, it's not going to work out so well for you. Number four, People are not their behaviors. This one became more apparent when I became a parent. That was an ironic choice of words, but when you have a kid, you learn, instead of saying, don't fall down, say things like, hey, be careful. So you start to say things differently. And the reason I bring that up is if a kid does something bad, you don't say they're a bad kid. You say that action is inappropriate. So you learn to separate out what people do and their behaviors from who they may be. And we'll get into a little bit more on that here in a minute. By sometimes we misjudge people because of behaviors they have. They may not even know that they have. All right. Number 5, everyone is doing the best they can with the resources that they have. And what that means is if people are struggling with something, they're not just doing it on purpose. It's people may have lack of information, lack of knowledge, lack of experience with doing things. So they're making the decisions that they are based on the limited information they had at that particular time. So it's easy for us to judge when somebody's doing something that we already know more about it, or we've been through ourselves. Maybe they're just not there yet. All right. Number 6, you can calibrate on behavior. And what that means is all you have to do is look at the behavior itself instead of the person. So if they yelled and screamed at you, you can look at, well, what's behind that behavior? Not, well, I hate them and they're an a-hole. So it's looking at the behavior, and you can dive a little bit deeper. Number 7 is my favorite one. The map is not the territory. And what that means is you can look at a map and what does it have? A bunch of lines and things. But when you actually get there, the landscape is so much different. If you are in sales, this is a huge, huge, huge one, especially if you answer RFPs. And so what's an RFP, a request for proposal? That is where they put together a document of what specifics they need. What's number of units are they looking for? What's the goal? But that's usually written by someone as the first level of what's there. But then you have to talk to them to find out what's really the pain behind them putting out this bid. Is it because they no longer like the current provider? Is it because they saw newer technology that's out there? Is it because they need to reduce costs? Those type things aren't necessarily always in the document itself. And that's why you have to dig a little bit deeper. Now, depending on what type of RFP it's out there, sometimes the minute it's released, you're no longer allowed to talk to somebody. But let's say that it's a job proposal. Well, you can go on the internet and it'll list the requirements for the job, and you can turn in a resume, or you can talk to someone to understand what is it that they're looking for to fulfill the position. A lot of times people put out a checklist, a nice to have, but that doesn't tell you what they're really looking for. So how do you dig that much deeper? So what you see in here isn't always the story. Language is just a label of experience. And human nature is we tell you about the symptom of a pain point, but we don't tell you what the problem is. So think of it as going to the doctor. Oh, I've got a headache. Okay, well, let me just give you, did you try taking aspirin? That's a symptom. But it may be that you have to go to a chiropractor because you've got something wrong with your neck or your back or something else. So we very much use symptoms instead of identifying the problem in a medical capacity, but we do this in a business and personal capacity as well. We look at how do I get rid of this temporary pain, but what's the thing that's going on in the background that if we solve that, this temporary pain that keeps coming and going would no longer be here. So let's put that in a business perspective. Why I'm just not closing enough deals. Okay. Are you calling more people? Have you reviewed your sales script? There's so many things that you can take this and apply it to, but an easy frame is the map is not the territory. What people tell you may not be the truth. What is on a piece of paper is a description, but it's not really the problem. It's a symptom that they're having right now. Just things to look at it. Number 8, you are in charge of your mind and therefore the results. So a big, big one. How do you talk to yourself? Most of us talk to ourselves in a way that if they were our friends talking to us like that, we would give them the big old middle finger and say, hey, it was nice knowing you. But we can be really hard on ourselves. No, it's meant to keep us safe. It's not that we just grew up and thought, hey, I'm going to talk trash to myself all the time. But what it's about is how do I stay safe? How do I stay in the comfort zone? The way that our brain and our body is designed is we like comfort to a degree. Yes, there's adrenaline junkies and things, but we revert back to levels of comfort. Why? Because we don't want cortisol all the time in our body, stressing us the F out. So it's a way that we kind of maintain and contain ourselves versus always reaching out on things. But when you're in charge of that and the way you talk to yourself, little things like instead of saying I'm a failure, You can say, that marketing campaign I just ran failed. So don't identify yourself or talk negatively to yourself about things that you're not in control of. Now, if you've done something that you need to apologize for or address, by all means, go and do that. But stop putting personal blame on things that aren't personal. So as I mentioned before, I just didn't get any sales this week. I suck. Do you suck, or do you need to address something else? Is it your sales script? Is it the leads you bought? Is it how you're putting your marketing out there? All these things. So you can discuss the pattern or the behavior, but stop identifying of it. Total side note, if this is one of your points of weakness as a person, like you walk up every day while you're brushing your teeth. God, I'm going to take a sip of coffee real fast. While you're brushing your teeth, if you see the person in the mirror and you start talking trash to yourself from early in the morning or whatever time is going on, a great book for that is The High Five Habit by Mel Robbins. Basics of it, bullet points. Every day you get up, walk up immediately, give yourself a high five in the mirror. Why? Because we associate high fives as a positive thing. So before you get a chance to start talking trash to yourself, give yourself a high five. Can't tell you how many people I've recommended that book to. Go look in my own mirror, got hand smudges on there. If I go to clean it, say, leave the smudges there. Or, I have them at different places around the house. So get the book. It's only available on Audible, The High Five Habit by Mel Robbins. All right. Next one down is people have all the resources they need to succeed and achieve their desired outcomes. So there's not unresourceful people. It's just we're ignorant about what should we be doing. Look, the education system is very good, taught us a lot of things, but it taught us how to be employees and how to follow rank and file versus how to think outside of the box. So the whole 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon, have you ever turned around and looked at all the different resources that you may have? Make a list of those. Who do I know that are in the positions I want to be in? Who could I follow and model their success? So what is modeling? You take a look at how somebody else has achieved what you want to achieve, and you break it down into little steps and try and repeat that process. Now, a little side note from here, this is just my personal opinion. I used to look up to people that were so much higher on a level than I was that it almost felt overwhelming, like, well, I'll never reach that level. That's good, but here's for me why it's not great. Because that felt so overwhelming, it caused analysis paralysis. So what I started doing was looking at someone who's just that next step, that next tier higher. How did they get there? What did they do? Then you can level up to the next person. Then you can level up. And what you're doing is you're bringing yourself up at the exact same time. So if you want to get in better shape, don't look at the number one person on here. Like let's say for guys, Brad Pitt, right? When he's in Fight Club. Well, you don't have to look at Brad Pitt. You can get like, who's in a little bit better shape than I am? And what are they doing? Pick people's brains. People love to share success stories. It's just people, they're afraid to share them where it seems like it's braggadocious. But if you ask anyone for help, 99% of people will help you and tell you what they did, but they're just afraid to share it because they don't want to get shamed. And that's the pros and cons of social media, right? You put things out to help people. People are like, oh, you think you're an influencer now? Oh, you think you know this? Why is it not just sharing information like you tell your friends? So that's just another way to look at things, which, by the way, reframing things is an NLP technique. So, all right. All procedures should include wholeness. And what that means is don't do things that you're in inner conflict with. Don't take a job you hate just to make money. If you do it temporarily. But try and find something that you enjoy doing. You know, we hear all the time, if you love what you do, then you'll never work a day in your life. That's great in theory. Look, we all need to pay bills. And sometimes we have to do things we don't want to pay bills. But don't make that your whole full-time thing. Try and do things that you align with in life. Things that make you happy. You know, so it's just a matter of sometimes we have to do what needs to be done to get things done. But when you can, choose things that align with who you are as a person, what makes you happy, and what keeps you fulfilled. All right. There is only feedback. This one is a huge one. And what this one is there is no failure. Failure, yes, it sucks. Here's the way the human brain works. For every one positive comment we get, it takes 10. I'm sorry. Yeah, I did that one backwards. For every 10 positive comments we get, one negative thought can destroy it. So what does that mean? We got to pay attention to what we say to ourselves. And I already mentioned earlier, blame the behavior, not the person. But when you start looking at things as, okay, it's not failure, it's feedback. What can I learn from this? One of the things that company I worked for 15 years ago, we started doing post-mortems to understand what caused us to succeed and what caused us to fail or not win a piece of business. Or if we won a piece of business, why did we end up losing the customer after the fact? So we can look at it as a loss. And guess what? All of us being in sales, we care more about the wins and we hate the losses, but you can learn from the losses. You know, when things are going positive all the time, then we don't pay attention to how we can improve. Oh, hey, I got to win. All right, that's good. Oh, hey, I'm in better shape. That's great. But when something goes wrong, that's when we go, oh shit, maybe I need to dig into this just a little bit. And it can be work stuff, relationships, parenting, physical health, you name it. It's when something goes wrong, that's when we should pause and have the opportunity to go, let me dig in just a little bit deeper on this one subject. All right. The meaning of communication is a response you get. And what that means is there's two parts of communication. What am I saying? And how is it received by the other person? So with that, you got to have positive intent is the most important part of what you're doing. But then instead of just speaking, you pay attention to the response you get from the other person. And then you make sure that you're on the same page. So if anybody's ever gone to Imago therapy, this is a very advanced version of it. But Imago therapy is when somebody said, I had a really hard day. And then the other person goes, you had a really hard day? And you go, yes. And what you have to do is you have to agree that what I said is what they heard. And then you can move on to the next statement. Now, you can't do this in business. It's a little bit harder in life. But if, like here in Never Split the Difference, you can parrot what people say. So if somebody says, I've had a hard day, you can literally, not even in a therapy setting, you can say, had a hard day, and give people the chance to expand on it. And when you use the terms that they use, it lets you know that they're paying attention. Human nature is that we start putting things in the way we think, our terms. So somebody can say, I had a hard day. And somebody can turn around and say, well, I'm sorry, your day sucked. That's not what they said. And that's what will cause people to shut down, because mentally we're thinking, well, you're not listening to me. I told you I had a hard day. I didn't say today sucked. So when you start talking to customers, prospects, people in your romantic life, your personal life, use the words that they use to help understand and let them know, I hear what you're saying. All right, next one down. The law of requisite variety. The person with the most flexibility behavior is in control. And what that means is the person who has the most options is the one who's leading it. There's so many different ways that you can put this out there, but you can boil down to the less needy person is the person who is in control of the situation. So you want to take it on romantic terms. You're early on dating, you've met 2 or 3 people and you're trying to decide, well, which one do I want to date? Then you're not living in scarcity. If you've only met one person, then you're like, oh God, I hope it works out with them. Oh my gosh, I hope they like me. And you start that neediness factor. And neediness is a repellent in all areas of life. Let's say that you are applying for jobs. Well, if you have multiple offers on the table, you're the one in control of which job will I take, instead of, oh, I hope I can get this one job. I was very lucky. I was a bit of a follower growing up, still suffer from that from time to time. I applied to one college. Why? Because several of my friends had gone to Texas Tech. It was a short drive. They seemed to like it. I'll just apply there. Didn't go look at other campuses. Didn't expand my horizons. Now, luckily, it worked out. I would have been kind of screwed had I not got accepted to there because I didn't apply to anywhere else. So the more possibilities, options you have, a sales technique that's built around this is if you give people options, like this is what's known as a double bind, but hey, do you want the furniture to be delivered on Tuesday or Thursday? Well, that's giving someone options instead of just a option of, do you want the furniture? So the more options you have, the more opportunities, the less needy you are. So that's why you should always have in sales, they would say, have your pipeline full. That's the reason for that. All right. And then all procedures should be designed to increase choice. The more options you have, the less desperate you are and the more influence you have. So those kind of piggyback off of each other. Actually, I may have said that one backwards. I did. So the law of requisite variety is The person with the most flexibility and behavior will control the system. What that means is don't get mad, right? Have different emotions that you can do, have different ways of thinking. And then boundaries or restrictions, the more you can get rid of them, the boundaries you have, the beliefs that, look, it's good to believe in things, but you need to examine your beliefs and say, are they really my beliefs, or are they beliefs that were given to me by someone else? Was that my parents' belief? Was that my grandparents' belief? Was that my employer's belief? Was that my significant others? What is a decision and a boundary that I gave myself versus was given to me when I was little or in a relationship of some type? And then I already mentioned the last one before, the more choices you have, the less desperate you are and the more influence that you have. So nobody likes neediness. All right, jump into one I guarantee you've heard no matter what position you're in. It doesn't have to be related to sales, and that is communication is broken down to 55% physiology. So posture, gesture, facial expressions, blinking, breathing. 38% tonality. How did I say it? Hey, have a good day. Have a good day. Were you saying the same words, but it's how we say it. What's the inflection? What's the tonation of how we say something? Yeah, you too. Hey, you too. It doesn't matter. So this is where sarcasm comes into play, right? So when we are sarcastic, we say something that could be very nice, but we put that sarcastic tone to it. So that's 38%. In addition to tonality, though, the tempo of which you speak, faster or slower, the timbre, the quality of voice, the volume that you speak at. So if you ever want people to pay attention to what you say, is you go, all of a sudden when the sound goes away, people pay attention. They'll actually lean in. This is an old trick that teachers use, speakers use when they're up wanting to talk about something and people are just jabbing with each other. And so they'll go, and they'll start whispering. All of a sudden, everybody stops talking loud because they want to hear what's going on in the situation. And last but not least, that only leaves 7% for words, keywords, common experiences. So if you know 7%, only 7% is based on the words you say, it kind of is mind-blowing. Why? We've seen copywriting courses that are out there talking about if your copy sucks, that's true. But that's if you only are doing things in print. So you do need to learn how to do copy. So for a landing page, a funnel, if you're answering back to RFPs, things of that nature, you have to know how to write the words. But realize that's only 7% of the entire situation. So if you can send a video where people can hear your tone, your voice, they can see your physiology. Are you smiling while you talk about it? Are you frowning? Do you look angry? This is what helps fill in those communication gaps that are there. So if you've ever gotten a text message and you're in a bad mood and you read it in that bad mood tone of voice, and somebody else may have been the nicest thing, when we'll use a simple example I just did, have a nice day. How dare you tell me to have a nice day? And they could have just been saying, hey, have a nice day. So that's why it's so important of, yes, put things into Word, put things into writing, have copywriting skills. Hint, hint, AI does this for you now. But tonality and body language matter so, so much. So while we're talking about that, this book right here is You Say More Than You Think by Janine Driver. That is the first body language book that I looked at that says, hey, what is my body language saying to me when I walk into a room, or about me, not to me. I sound bipolar on that one. So when you walk into a room, what do people think of you? Are your shoulders rounded? Are you slumped over? Do you smile? Are you closed off? And it's okay to cross your arms. Guess what? Your back can hurt. You can be cold. But do you sit with your arms crossed and your legs crossed and you hunch down? It's a fantastic book. That's why I work with Janine. That book changed my life. We're speaking at an event later next month in Nashville, Tennessee on October 27th. Go to impacteffect23.com. And we are going to be talking about read the face, then read the room. So I'm going to be teaching how to decode people's facial features so you figure out, how do I speak their language? And that's one of the things we're going to talk about in NLP here in a second. But then Janine is going to be what's going on with their body language afterwards. You know, are their arms crossed, legs crossed? Are they leaning back? Are they leaning forward? So that's what we're going to cover for the audience there. There's some other amazing speakers there as well. Coach Michael Burt, Tim Story. Go check out the website, impacteffect23.com. Anyway, enough about that. So then we talked about, once you know physiology, tonality, and words, then how do you start going in talking with someone about experiences and to really understand the problem? When people tell you something, again, not the symptom, but the problem. When somebody tells you what their problem is, don't immediately give an answer. So if they say, I'll just use my old history. we're having poor quality of phone calls through the system. Okay, so you just need a new system. No, what you do is they'll go, no, that's not right. So when you can do is you can take a step from a more global level instead of getting down into the details. So make sure you understand their actual problem. So then you can go, okay, well, how does this affect you or the people who are making the phone calls? Well, what they're having is they're having a problem with da da da. Okay, so it's a reception problem, or is it the volume problem? So when you go back and you ask questions, and it's called chunking up to get more way up here at the high level view, or it's called chunking down to get into the details. So think about it. Are you up in an airplane or are you down on the ground? And that is the closer you get to the ground, chunking down, the more specific you get. So if you go into it and you go, okay, so it's phone calls. Yes, it's phone calls that are a problem. Okay, no problem. What is the problem with phone calls? Well, with the phone calls, when they try to call from at this time of day, okay, so it's a time of day problem. You can start drilling down, and that's when you get to the heart of things. So taking this into other examples, somebody's buying a house. Oh, so you just want a new house? Yeah, I want a new house. You need to chunk up and understand, okay, what is it about the house? Is it about the school system? You just need to ask them a higher level question first. What is the need behind a new house? Then let them tell you. Because for some people, it's just, hey, is it you don't like where you live? Is it because you have kids and you want to move to a better school system? So don't immediately try and answer something and go, okay, yeah, no, I got this house right down the street. It's perfect for you. Well, they haven't given you what the terms of what they're needing a house for first. So if you're a realtor or you're a loan officer, what's the purpose behind the purchase? That's what you really have to understand. So if somebody says, I need a house, you can't just say, all right, here's a house. You don't know what they're looking for yet. So what you do is you go one level higher. What's the reason you're looking for a house? Then you help them identify and list out the things, and guess what? They like you for it. And you can do this in your own life as well. If you have a problem, something you need to address, chunk it up a level first and go, okay, why do I need to address this? Why is this important? And when you really find the pain point versus what you thought it was, then you can start diving down into the details. So let's just say, I'm not getting enough leads. Well, what's the pain of that problem? The pain of that problem is no leads mean no more money's coming in, which means how long can I stay in business, or I'm gonna have to go back and do something different. Once you find that out, okay, how are you getting leads today? Well, I buy leads from this third-party system. Okay, are there other third-party systems you can look at? Oh, I didn't think about that. So it's just helping people identify. So start every time somebody has a problem, before you start digging in and giving solutions, make sure you understand what's the real need behind the problem. And that's what a lot of NLP is based upon, is just what do people say? What are they telling you? How are they saying it? And a great one that everyone can use is reframing. So what is a reframe? Is you reframe something when somebody's kind of stuck in a problem. What's a different perspective or a different way that you can see that exact same problem? So it's things like, well, I just don't have enough money. Okay. Is it you don't have enough money for this? Is it you need to increase sales? Is it you need to trim back some expenses? There are other ways to look at it. I always make the joke and say, I'm not a cashier. I'm a financial transaction specialist. You're still doing the same job, but sometimes just the wording of what people use helps people out mentally. So reframing is a big one. If you've ever listened to Ed Milet, you've listened to a lot of successful speakers. Stop saying, why did this happen to me? Get rid of the why. We'll talk about why is important in a second, but get rid of the why, because why is a victimish, it happened to me. And change that, why did this happen to me, to how did this happen for me? Then you start looking for the lesson in things. So what did I do? Instead of why did this happen to me? Well, then it's because this and because of that, and it's never your fault. When you say, how can this happen for me? You start looking at, okay, well, maybe this should have changed or that should have changed. So the way we talk to ourselves, there's a great book, that says, the better the question, the better the answer. It's kind of the same thing here, where when you start reframing things in better ways, it helps you mentally change how you perceive that particular thing. And with perception comes projection. So when you learn to change how you think about something, you start seeing everything else differently instead of projecting it out. And we're all guilty. Look, guilty. We all project on other people the problems that we have. And so if somebody's driving you nuts, and this is another NLP thing, take time to examine, why is something bothering you? Because a lot of things are projection. This is not an example from the course, but it's one that you'll hear me say quite a bit, is the person who's most paranoid about their house getting broken into is the burglar. Why? That's the mindset that they're stuck in. Oh, what would they do to break into a house? Well, then all of a sudden they've got more locks on their door than anyone else. So if people start projecting and accusing you of things, you may want to take a look what's behind that. And if you're the one projecting, you definitely want to take a look at what's behind that. So this was just a quick overview. Some of the things I learned last week where they say teaching is learning twice. So I wanted to get it re-ingrained in me, share it with you guys as well. And what we'll do is we'll end up getting one of the two facilitators who was on there, maybe both. I don't know if they do podcasts together, on here to go way deeper. Because one of the best things that they covered, and I don't want to steal their thunder on this, is how people make buying decisions and what you can learn based on that. But I probably got 25 pages of notes from being at this particular event. And this was going through it a second time. So that just tells you it was pretty freaking amazing. If anybody's never looked into it, I highly, highly recommend taking an NLP course, because it helps you examine a lot of the ways that we're built and wired and just look at things differently. It's kind of like picking up a new book. Look, you can get some things that are gold mines or gold nuggets from it. Well, it could be gold mine if you learn a lot of gold, right? Or it could be something you go, that just doesn't apply to me. But I highly, highly, highly recommend it. The one I did was, the website is Recalibrate 360. Jeez, I'm glad I'm wrapping this up because I am tongue-tied today. But recalibrate360.com. And the facilitators, like I mentioned, were great. They also had people in there who were team leads to help you out when you had questions and everything. So it was a long 5 days, but damn, it sure was worth it. So with that being said, thank you for listening to me when I can't talk today. So I am going to go take the shower, and then I'm going to head to the airport. I'm headed to California, but Ed and I will be back next week. So go to edparco.com. I'm Brian Galke, or subtleskills.com. Thank you for joining. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday, and we'll see y'all next week. Oh, Ed would be happy for me on this one. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Appreciate it. Bye.